Hello and welcome back to Earful Conversation Pod. I'm your host, Keisha Partridge. Today, you already know what our topic is going to be. You see it in the title. Yes, we're going to get right into that. But first, let's do our question of the day, which comes from the Earful Conversation Deck, the Family Dinner Edition. And the question is, what is your favorite movie and why? The answer I give when people ask me what's my favorite movie, it is Coming to America. This movie came out a year after I was born. So I didn't fall in love with it until years down the line. But I'm super blessed to have a family that they have a great sense of humor. So I have seen this movie through and through probably 20 plus times, but hundreds in passing. I just think all the characters that Arsenio Hall and Eddie Murphy played, I had never seen anything like that when I watched this movie, so it was exceptional. But when I say that the answer I give when people ask me that is Coming to America is because, generally speaking, I give answers that are kind of like programmed. I've been asked so many times, like, this is just the go to answer. But realistically, my answer could be different because I have several movies that I love and I fell in love with over the years. But I kind of just stick with this answer, and it might not even be my favorite anymore. It's just my go to answer. Like, my degree is in behavioral science, so I know that by your answers, that's the way people see you. And through, I do believe that this movie represents my sense of humor. So that's my answer. What's your favorite movie and why? So let's dive into our topic, which is conditioning and what they don't tell you about the Daniels fast. So I'm on day 15 with 7 more to go of the Daniels fast. And at the end of the week last week, I somewhat hit a wall. I would even call it a breakthrough. So the night before, in my prayer journal, I wrote down all the things God told me would happen in 2021. This is what I wrote down. I went to bed with what I thought was so much clarity, and I was super pleased and happy. I woke up the next day and I hopped on YouTube and I found a video called Rejection for a Purpose. And it talked about how we view good versus how God views good. For instance, we look at rejection as a bad thing, whereas it's God's protection over us. And it made me think about what I wrote down in this prayer journal, and if I included God in these wants, or were they just completely all of my wants, and this had nothing to do with a connection with God. And that's why I titled this Conditioning and What They Don't Tell You on the Daniels Fast, because I seen so many videos that made the fast seem glamorous. And it made the fast, it just wasn't any videos that were real about someone's real experience. They only talked about the glamorous sides of it. And I seen different recipes, and people teaching you how to make these different foods and things for the Daniels fast. And I didn't see videos on how to support you and help you with growing closer to God and making a deeper connection to God. You can honestly find yourself speaking right back at yourself, and you're thinking that you're having this connection or this dialogue with God, and you're talking to yourself and you're not including Him at all. And I found people on YouTube talking about their new jobs, they're recently engaged or married. But what happened in between time? Like, it didn't just happen like that. Like, what was the journey like? Was I the only one that hit a wall on day 11? Day 11 hit me like a bus. I had to reevaluate everything. All the days before that, I felt like I was making a mockery out of the Daniel fast. Was I really doing that? I don't know, but that's the way that I felt. Looking up recipes and watching other people's journeys, I felt like I was just kind of going through the motion as well. And I really wish someone would have shared information with me, day one. I could have avoided getting caught up in those recipes and looking at other people and worrying about the end game. Everyone talked about all these amazing things that happen at the end of the fast. So I found myself trying to test God, listing all of my wants and demanding that when the fast was over, these were the things that I was going to receive. But God already knows my wants. So this was the time to get on the same page of what I viewed as good versus what God viewed as good for me. I may feel rejected from a job or not being able to get my dream home, but I needed to listen and allow God to speak to me. This is when you get that clarity. You get the clarity that you desire, and you don't have those outside disruptions. So I was still getting those. No, I wasn't on social media, but I was on YouTube looking at other people's journeys going through the Daniel fast, and there was no realistic people that I encountered. They only talked about what they ate or what happened at the end, all of these supposed things that occurred at the end for them. That's the only videos I seen. I did not see the process of how people connected to God, why people were doing the fast, anything of the sorts did I find. So I only found these things, and those are the things that I held on to the most, as this must be some sort of importance. But after day 11, I realized that I had to recenter and begin the conditioning process. What is involved in conditioning, and how do you condition for 2021? So, for those of you who are former athletes like myself, when you hear conditioning, it's your worst nightmare. For basketball, when we would condition, we would just run and run and run and run for long periods of time. And that would be so we could be prepared for the down and back of the game. What happens if we didn't condition for it? 5 minutes into the game, you're begging the coach to come out. That's exactly what it is. Not being conditioned. We need conditioning for our life. 2020 was a surprise to all of us. We weren't prepared for what was in store. We had to use up whatever we had to get by. But this year, we will be prepared by conditioning. In 2020, were you able to be of aid to anybody that needed you, or were you not conditioned enough to support others? Let's work on conditioning our hearts. Now, were you in a position to give unto others, or were you trying to make ends meet? Let's work on conditioning thy pockets. Save, save, save. Therefore, you're in a position to give, give, give. I've always had a personal relationship with God. And he may say otherwise because there was a few times I've gotten off track, but I've always felt him with me. Did I always listen? No, but he was always there. Before 2020 hit, I began to deepen my relationship, and that was before the pandemic and the murdering of Black and brown people. I ran to God. I had God to run to, and I held on tighter than I ever held before. But I say that to say, what was your prayer life like before 2020 hit? You can always talk to God, but I've learned over the years that there are levels to prayer. The last step is conditioning in prayer. The more you pray, the more intentional you are on how you speak to God, you'll notice the response changes. You'll receive more clarity and understanding. You won't feel like you're in this world alone. So, let's do a little bit of a recap. Condition our hearts. Let's be more loving. Condition thy pockets. My favorite one that I'm going to be working on for sure. Let's practice sharing. Conditioning our relationships with God. More prayer. Intentional prayer. One thing when I hear speakers talk that helps me practice what is preached and apply it to my life are real life examples or first steps that you can take. So, being a former athlete, I love being challenged. Okay, so for being loving, I challenge you to think about the person that's closest to you right now. Call them up and just ask them, how are you? Are you okay? In our society, it's so normal to ask somebody, how are they? And it's looked at kind of like it's just like a hello. And nobody ever really gives a response. So when you call the person that's closest to you, really listen for a response. Really listen and get a response. Okay, so that's for being loving. Next, sharing. I would say pick a local nonprofit and make a donation. You can make a small donation, $20, $25. If you're not able to make that, volunteer your time, your skills, your talents to a local nonprofit. And finally, tonight before bed, just lay there and clear your thoughts, clear your mind, and invite God into your space. Okay, we're going to end with our shameless plug. Our shameless plug is a shout out to a company called God is Dope. This is a shirt that I got from God is Dope, and it's not a local place, but it's just somewhere that I bought a lot of shirts from recently, and I got this shirt that says, never would have made it. I love it. I have a lot of shirts that just flat out say God is Dope. I have sweatshirts and everything. I love it. They have t-shirts, sweatshirts, hats. It's an amazing faith-based company that they aren't afraid to share their love of God. And we'll go to www.godisdope.com. So we're going to end, and I thank you so much for tuning in to Earful Conversation Pod. We will be back here next week. And like I always say, have a good one.